All right. All right. Welcome to another edition of the Extraordinary Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Monaco, chilling with a fellow Alex and a fellow San Diegan, born and raised, Alex Holmes, former two-time USC national champion. Alex, how are we doing? Thanks so much for hopping on with me.
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Of course. Well, I want to talk San Diego for just a second. First off, can we square this away, being both in San Diego and LA? How would you compare a Mexican burrito in San Diego versus anywhere else in the country?
I mean, I grew up on a little place called Los Dos on La Jolla Boulevard.
Woo!
I don't think I've had a better carne asada burrito anywhere. So,
but I'm trying to tell people.
Yeah, San Diego Mexican is hard to top.
I kid you not. I have transferred San Diego burritos to Los Angeles just to make people become believers. It's that real. Not to mention the hot sauce, which is a whole nother beat.
I do have some trucks out here though in LA that are hidden gems where you can get some pretty great pastor.
Ooh, that is noteworthy. Thank you for sharing. I'll have to potentially get that info after the call. Well, so anyways, you have a very interesting kind of football journey and life journey. I was looking up basically on the USC website, I believe it was, or something in relation to the Trojans. They called you a Renaissance man in regards to your academic accomplishments as well as an athlete. And I know you didn't have a traditional journey to make it to the NFL. What was the kind of aha moment growing up? You're like, all right, I gotta play. I gotta hop in. I mean, I know you were kind of said your family potentially said you were maybe too big to hop in, but it wasn't until that 8th, 9th grade year where actually you got an interesting story in and of itself with the year of eligibility. But kind of what took off for you with sports off the bat?
Yeah, well, I mean, I had an unusual upbringing. I typically, a lot of athletes are kind of one track when they're coming up, and just because of my background, my mother's Greek and my dad, my dad's black, and he was kind of he's from Akron, Ohio, and first person in his family to go to college, but he was an athlete. Mm-hmm. And my mother was what's called a classicist, and meaning she studied, ancient Greek and the classical languages. And so I had a weird upbringing in that in the morning I would have, I would be studying Plato and reading philosophy and stuff like that. And in the afternoon I'd be training with my dad. So, wow. Definitely a unique upbringing. I was too big to play football. So I just, I excelled in baseball and basketball, but we didn't know about football really until 9th grade.
So that's a fascinating day in the life right there. So when you're studying Plato and these greats, I'm fascinated with the mindset. I'm over 3 years into daily meditation. I'm also fascinated with athletes and how they master the mind, whether it be a Kobe, a Jordan, etc. Were you able to ever connect those two either early on or later in your athletic career of just the mastery of the mind?
I mean, to be honest, no. I mean, I was blessed to be athletic, and I kind of, was able to excel and do well just based on my athletic ability. I never really, even at the college and pro level, I never was one of those guys that just lived, eat, and breathed football. And I probably, cut my career because I wasn't like that, because at that level you have to be.
Right. Well, in terms of just being successful on the field, was there any tricks of the trade for you? I mean, I'm always curious to see how athletes get themselves ready for game time. Some are silent, utilizing a similar routine of music or what have you they listen to. Was there anything for you in particular that got you going and ready for game day?
To be honest, no.
He just showed up and balled out.
Yeah, I just showed up and did my best.
That's awesome. Well, you were on a team. You were on a couple teams that went all the way. won national championships, obviously a special locker room to be a part of in any sport. If you don't mind, kind of just touching on, I love talking about what, teamwork's all about and what makes a great team and being able to get guys to buy into one goal and one vision. What was anything those two championship locker rooms that either you've resonated with even to this day, or something you look back on and are grateful for?
Yeah, so I mean, the unique thing about those teams is my recruiting class, the class of 2000, was the #1 recruiting class coming out of high school. And at that point, SC was, hadn't won anything and was really not relevant. They were just kind of, had clout because it was USC, right? So our class was guys like BKU, who was a first-round draft pick, Matt Grudegood, Matt Castle, who's still playing, a bunch of really big-name guys. And we kind of went into the program, and the program wasn't where it needed to be. And Paul Hackett, when he left, Pete came in and kind of changed the culture, but we had a base of strong, really good players. And just, as the culture shifted with Pete, we were able to dominate recruiting, which is what ultimately translates, it's one of the more important in winning. Obviously, you have to develop talent, but,
right.
We were able to stack top 5 recruiting classes basically every year. So, those teams really, like, everyone gets excited about the 2 national championship teams. I'm not, I think our team that won the first Orange Bowl, where Troy and Carson were seniors, might have been the best team at the very last game of the year. But not a lot of people talk about that. Obviously, the national championship teams, completely dominated everyone that we played, pretty much.
Right.
But I think that actual team, when Carson was a senior, the year he won the Heisman, was a ridiculous team. Well,
when you're in the, like you just alluded to, developing that culture on the rise, what gets a team, what gets a group of individuals to buy in to a new culture, especially with a coaching change and everything going on?
Yeah, I mean, I think the culture was new, but there's not another school. I mean, everyone has an argument for their school, right? But if you just go strictly by the numbers, there's not another school that compares to USC in terms of football history.
Yeah, I would agree.
Most Heismans, the most national championships, most #1 draft picks, all that kind of stuff. Most people in the Hall of Fame. So, it was really just kind of tapping into that, and Pete was able to encourage guys and get them fired up and get everyone on the same page. Obviously we had guys like Norm Chow who knew how to put the right person in the right place and get mismatches. So, there's not a lot of places where you can put Reggie Bush where it's not a mismatch. And when you have Reggie Bush and Lindell White on the field at the same time, you don't know what you're going to get hit with. And then you couple that with, 2 Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks and ridiculous defensive players. It's tough to compete against that. And then it was really just a matter of tapping into who, USC as an institution really was, right? Which is just tough guys that are, playing to the best of their ability.
Without question. So I want to talk about leadership, if you don't mind. Just obviously impeccable leadership at USC. You don't have to answer from a football or even sports-related question, but what is your personal experience with the best kind of leadership? I minored in servant leadership in college, so I found that to be a pretty interesting style. Was it when you watch great leaders, whether it is a sports leader or just a leader in life, is there anything that sticks out to you, or anything that in sports actually taught you that you've carried over in today in your work present time?
Yeah, I mean, sports-wise, at USC, the USC is different because that's kind of pure. The NFL is a business. There's no, I mean, that's the only way to look at that, right? So, for us at USC, there really wasn't like one person who was extremely vocal or led like that. the reason we were successful is because we held each other accountable. You know, if something in preseason, if someone was dogging it or not, you know, finishing sprints or doing that kind of thing, the coaches didn't have to tell us anything. We self-police that. It's the nature of those teams, right? So it was constant accountability across offense and defense by everyone. So,
yeah,
you know, even if we were in a play in practice and someone was loafing or taking a play off, you know, their teammates on, you know, if it was a defense player, the other defensive players would get in their face and be like, you know, that's not how we do things here. So I think that, you know, obviously people have different leadership skills and that's how it was for us, you know. At the NFL, there's guys that stand out that are just vocal guys, and some people react to that. You know, I personally was not a guy that was like a rah-rah guy. I just tried to do everything right and dominate every play, you know.
Are you okay with, let's say, like a quarterback? You know, obviously you have guys like Brady and Peyton, very vocal, like you just mentioned, and clearly leaders within their locker room. Then you also have guys that lead by example, may not be the loudest in the room or the alpha necessarily, even though they're in a leadership position like a quarterback. Are you okay with that? Because I find it interesting, people that break down, especially quarterbacks, like, oh, he's a great player, leader. Someone like a Jay Cutler or something. I don't know if he's a great player, but obviously his talent has gotten him over 10 years in the NFL. But people knock him for his body language. And I'm just wondering how that affects the team's chemistry and kind of energy because, you know, obviously it's a team game.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I can't really answer that because when I was playing sports, I just focused on my responsibility and not making mistakes. I don't really care what was going on.
Yeah.
So that was kind of what our mantra was at SC that I kind of took forward is it didn't matter where we were playing. It didn't matter who we were playing against. We really didn't, you know, the way we looked at it is our hardest game was Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Ooh,
you know, when we were
awesome.
competing against each other. And by thinking like that, like, you know, kind of in terms of, it didn't matter, like, if someone wanted to scream or yell, I mean, I don't really care. Like, I know what my responsibility is and I have to do it. And if I see someone not doing their job, I have to say something.
Yeah. Well, Pete's got he's got a different work week up there in Seattle, really night and day from any other locker room in the NFL. I mean, he's got that Michael Jordan is on psychology and meditation and mindset working with the players. He's got an accountability day. He's got a competition day. Was all that somewhat prevalent when you were in C?
Yep, we had competition Tuesdays, no turnover Wednesdays. You
Wow.
know, that was kind of the thing with Pete. I think more of the NFL has adopted, you know, similar strategies, right, in terms of the psychological stuff. We did not have that when we were in school, but, you know, probably the NCAA would try to find some way to make that a violation. So that's probably why we didn't. But yeah, I mean, you know, Pete's had great success. He has full control of that program is up there in Seattle. And so, yeah.
Right on. Well, just a couple more questions. I'll get you out of here. The sports is beautiful to me in the sense that it teaches you so much, whether it's team sports, individual sports, about life. Throughout your time in athletics, anything that stuck out to you that you've carried with you all these years of life lessons, if you will, into your own business and own life, whether it be personally or professionally?
Yeah, I mean, I'm big on accountability and transparency. You know, the nature of my business, being transparent and accountable to my clients is a big deal because I work in the entertainment industry.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, having celebrity clients, there's a whole, like, percentage of people that work in that space that just don't really have morals. And you know, by differentiating myself, I think that I've been able to have success. I've definitely also lost people because I'm not willing to go lie and say, hey, you know, I can make you 10 times more than that person can make you, right? So, you know, being accountable to people, being accountable to everyone, is important, and has helped me be successful business-wise.
Well, I got to shout out Wild Hair Media. You've had some incredible success over the years. We're breakthrough years ago with obviously setting up everything with Troy, and the first player to set up an affiliate situation with NFL Shop, and then some. Obviously a successful company all the way across the board. Just picking your brain, since I'm obviously on the entertainment side of digital sports, media, and all that jazz. Where do you see the industry moving forward in the next few years, entertainment, sports entertainment wise?
Yeah, so I mean, it's funny. Like when we started Wild Hair was really created to cater to Troy, because he was kind of at the peak of his career and didn't have any digital media help going on. That it was kind of an experiment that turned into a small business where we went and signed some other athletes. Frankly, after doing that for like 6 months, I was like, I don't really want to work with athletes because it's kind of you know, I would be sitting with these guys and trying to talk to them about not just their digital stuff and the importance of it, which no one really understood in 2010, 2011. But then I would, you know, kind of get into being fiscally responsible and stuff like that. And it was like talking to a wall. And I was like, you know, so I kind of went to my partner. I was like, hey, we got to pivot because I don't really want to work with these guys. Yeah. And what happened was we created a whole other business that kind of blossomed into something totally different. And so, you know, I think obviously digital media has become the medium for advertisers and for, you know, people's voices. So, you know, it's important. Like, this is a lot of these platforms, you know, if you look at Twitter in 2010, 2011, it was a vibrant, super crazy, engaged platform now, and it's kind of dead. Facebook's been there for a really long time and has a huge user base. You know, they kind of control everything, and they're really the only ones making a lot of money. So, yeah, you know, I'm always on the lookout for what the next thing is, and you know, in terms of handling all that kind of stuff responsibly, like, you know, we've seen it 1,000 times. Like, guys say something stupid and then they lose an endorsement deal, right? So, you know, words matter, and words matter. Even digital words matter, right? So, you think being an athlete is way more complicated off the field in today's world in 2017 than it was in the early 00s when you were playing? I think being a human is way more complicated. It's not. Yeah, right. I can't imagine being a teenager, the parent of a teenager, now, because of the iPhone, right? They have access to everything. You know, like, yeah. You know, I kind of grew up with Encyclopedia Britannica, like, to write papers. Like, it's not. You know, you have access to all the information in the world in the palm of your hand, right? Which is good and bad, because you know, you can Google anything and crazy stuff will come up. So I don't think that there's any reason to limit that to athletes. I mean, it's for every person. Yeah, well, it's quite a ongoing world of bombardment with technology we're living in. I my favorite part of the day is airplane mode at the end of the night. I gotta be honest. Yeah, I mean, I'm not an airplane mode guy. I'm always working. So kudos to you for being able to take breaks. I appreciate it. I don't. Yeah. Well, obviously, continued success. Alex, thanks so much for hopping on. Oh, I got to shout out the homie Ryan Clark. I think that's how we initially spoke to one another, was me doing that beach volleyball with a 10-pound medicine ball with him years ago. And yeah, and it was his birthday yesterday, actually, too. So shout out to Ryan. Happy birthday. Love Ryan Clark.
Well, thank you so much, Alex. Appreciate it. And at Trojan81 on Twitter and wildhairmedia.com. You're doing great things. Appreciate the insight. And one last thing, is Play-Doh still in your life today?
Play-Doh? Oh, Play-Doh's, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying Playdoh. Yes. I try and get a little bit of classical reading in once a month. So Plato, Socrates, all that kind of stuff. It pops up every once in a while. That's
fantastic. Great to hear. Well, that was inspiring. I appreciate you sharing all that.
I appreciate you having me.
All right. Thank you, Alex. Have a great weekend.
Have a good one later.
All right. Peace. And that was Alex Holmes, former USC Trojan of the two-time national champions, and now running Wild Hair Media, launched Troy Polamalu's online and social media digital presence several years ago, and is continuing to thrive in today's world. So check out wildhairmedia.com. This has been another episode of the Extraordinary Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Monaco. Ta-ta, real smooth.